Good afternoon, Africa. Good afternoon, African Confessions. So, I am back with another episode. There is a message that was forwarded to me by one of our admins, and I want to share with you guys that message. The message reads like this. Hello, how are you? I am in my mid 60s and I am one lady who is obsessed with her image. So please make sure that you do not reveal my name. I can say that I am not a very nice lady. I am one who is fearless. I am one fearless woman who is married to a soft spoken man and a very slow man. That type of a man who thinks very slow and speaks very slow. Okay, let me just say that he is a quiet man and he is not a go-getter. So he has always been that man who relies on his salary, and his salary was never enough. It was not enough to take care of our kids or even to send them to varsity. I am the oldest girl in my family, and all of my siblings take their orders from me. I command authority wherever I go. So going that route was not difficult for me because I am so fearless. I fear nobody, or maybe the correct word to describe me would be I am a very arrogant woman, but at church they think that I am a kind woman. So I traveled to Livingstone in Zambia and I met this old man. He comes from the Tonga tribe and he really put my house in order. I was tired of living a normal life. Every month, as soon as me and my husband get paid, our salaries will be finished, and by the 20th of the next month, we will be out of supplies. We were ever broke. I couldn't tell my husband because my husband, he is a very religious man and also he thinks too so slow, so it will be time wasting speaking with him. So I came up with a plan. I lied to my husband. I told him that I was traveling to Zambia for a work trip and he never questioned anything because I am not a type that can take orders from anyone. So he never said anything about my trip to Zambia. I left by bus cause we were just average human beings who couldn't even afford a car. At the moment, our firstborn son was about to finish his high school, and in my mind, I knew that we could not afford varsity tuition with our salaries. Our son was the very intelligent type, so I was not going to disappoint him by failing to pay his varsity tuition. Livingstone is a town in Zambia just next to Namibia, Botswana and Zimbabwe, and it is the home of Victoria Falls and the Tonga tribe that is well known for its dangerous juju and witchcraft. I got off the bus and upon my arrival, I asked the locals to direct me to the old man's household. The people in that area were very kind and they told me that since the sun was about to go down, I would need someone to accompany me because they said there were elephants roaming and wild animals that could attack me. So I was given two boys who took me to the old man's village. We walked in the bush and the moon was a full moon, and this area is in the bush and there are no street lights. As we were about to arrive, those two boys told me that they were not in a position to leave me at that old man's homestead, since that homestead, they said to me, was a well-known homestead that was very dangerous. So I had to brace myself for the worst, and as I walked towards that old man's homestead, I felt as if there were eyes that were looking at me. Besides darkness, there was something about this place which was very scary, such that I was humbled with my arrogance. A friend had advised me not to go there, but I was not in a position to listen to anyone. Before I arrived at this homestead, I had heard stories of women and children whose tongues were cut and were turned into zombies, and at this point my fear was that what if they will turn me into a zombie too? My thoughts were absorbed with the fears in my mind such that I only stopped when I felt something cold touching my arm. and my heart stopped pumping for a moment. Then I heard a deep voice asking me, "Where are you going?" I noticed that this was a very tall man, but he had a very strong smell, like someone who last took a bath about 100 years ago. That man was very smelly. I explained that I just wanted to see the great African doctor. Then that tall man directed me to a certain hut. The following morning, I tried to look very closely so that I could identify that being that I had met by the gate. But up to today, I still do not understand what I saw. Maybe that is why those young fellas didn't want to get their footsteps on that homestead. Back to my story. I walked into that hut and I saw about 10 to 15 people in the room. These people, they were all waiting for consultations and they were from different African countries. They spoke so many languages and we were all waiting for the consultations to begin. I also removed my shoes and I joined the queue. Throughout the night, I heard screams and sounds, and about 5 people managed to consult, and when they came back from consulting, no one said anything. All that you could hear were sounds like yeah, and people just taking a deep breath. I kept on asking myself, what exactly did these people see in that hut? And in the early hours of the morning, a certain woman went in to consult with the old man, and within a few seconds, she ran out screaming and she never came back. I heard an evil laugh like ha ha ha. Then the scream died. At this point, I was even doubting if I was strong enough to meet this old man. The following day, the sun came out and I began to have a clear picture of this homestead. There were a lot of children, especially the albino, and I was told that those children, they were used for certain rituals, especially money-making rituals, and these kids would have gone missing in their homes. My time came to consult, and I walked into the room, and in this room, I was told to remove my shoes, and I walked in. As I walked into the room, my knees became so cold. Fear overtook me, and the first thing that I saw was a snake that was on the corner of that room. I froze, but I was told not to be afraid. They told me that that snake will never bite me. You know that feeling when you are told to walk into a household where there are dogs, dangerous dogs, then the owners of that house will tell you that their dogs will never bite you, but you try to act cool, but in your mind you'll be crippled with fear. The hut was a very big hut and it was built on top of a tree, just like a tree house, but it was not very high. As I walked further into that hut, I saw animal skins, skeletons of human beings, and the old man sat down and he was playing with a cobra. I mean a cobra, a king cobra. He was playing with a snake. Upon my arrival, that old man just looked at me and he told me to sit down. I sat down, but deep inside I was filled with fear. I sat down with one bum. That old man continued to play with the cobra. Something said to me, run away, but I also wanted to give it a try, but I was so scared. He then ordered his snake to sleep. Then that snake came off him and piled next to him. Next, he told me that if I wanted to have money, there was only one way to do it. It was through the sacrifice of a human being. That was the only way that I could be rich. It was only that way, no other way. The old man just looked at me and he looked outside. And the only person that I really loved was my daughter. He looked at me and he said that he would give me time to think about it. So I went outside. Oh, I forgot to say that the smell in that room was so unpleasant and I couldn't wait to leave the room. I later went back and he asked me if I had made up my mind and I told him the name of my daughter. He laughed. That old man laughed, and the laugh was such an evil laugh. He gave me a dish, and I saw in that dish my own daughter's face. He gave me a bottle, and that bottle, it had roots inside. After I had finished all the rituals, the old man said, "Return to your people. You are now rich. Return to your people." So I left that old man's house. Upon my arrival in my home country, I heard that my daughter had just vomited and she had died. So everyone said to me that they were scared to call me. So upon arrival, I found that my house was packed with people. At first I was scared, but the fear mysteriously just disappeared. On the day that we buried my daughter, all the people were heartbroken and everyone was just crying. They really irritated me, the way that they were crying, the way that they were screaming, because all that I wanted was this to be over. I just wanted to bury my daughter so that I can move on with my life. As body viewing time came, my turn came, and I was surprised when I looked at my daughter. I did not see my daughter. My daughter's face had turned into mine. Instead of seeing her, I saw me. So I asked one of my siblings to look into the coffin. She looked into the coffin, then she looked at me. I asked her, "What have you seen in that coffin?" Then she said, "It is your daughter." So I told her what I had seen. I told her that I had seen myself in that coffin instead of my daughter. My sibling felt so sorry for me. She said it could be the pain of you losing a child that has blinded you. You are not in that coffin. It is your daughter. You will be okay. God will heal you, my sister. After burial, life went on, but my husband was deeply hurt and I had to continue with my mission. I did what I was told by the old man and I did everything on the grave. And the following morning, when I woke up, I found out that there was money, but this money was new money, and all of that money, it was in my daughter's room. I quickly had to lock the room, and also the great traditional healer had told me not to give anyone my daughter's clothes. As per our African culture, when somebody dies, her clothes are distributed amongst the family members just for keepsake and so that her memory can be kept amongst the family members. So I locked my daughter's room so that none of my family members could gain access into her room. I made sure to follow all of the rules that the healer had told me. I made sure that I followed all of the rules. I made sure to follow the rules, and the healer told me that failing to follow instructions would result in me dying or me going mad. Life changed, and my poor husband still struggled to come to terms with the death of our daughter, since he was so much in love with his daughter. I just told him that I was resigning and I'll get a lump sum of money from work. I went on and I resigned. Then I opened a grocery shop in town. It's been 10 years now, but now I don't sleep. Each and every day I wake up at night and I see my daughter sitting down. Sometimes she'll be standing crying, wearing clothes that will be covered in blood. I don't have peace. The other day I went to my shop, and as I unlocked the door, I saw my daughter standing inside. She was crying. I often ask for forgiveness, and it's like I have lost my mind because a lot of people see me talking to myself. I don't have peace and I am tired. I tried to tell the old man about this, and he said that there is no more turning back. Instead, I should sacrifice the next person so that I cannot see my daughter again. I am not in a position to do it, but this thing of me seeing my daughter each and every time, it is driving me crazy. I don't have a choice because very soon, I have to make another sacrifice. Otherwise, I'll run mad. I cannot afford to go crazy. I cannot afford to do that. Sacrifice for me is the only option. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received from one of our admins. Yo, Africa, strange things do happen. Let's meet again in the following episode.